So this derp Subaru gets to live the dream life of many anime viewers. What do I even mean? The buffoon gets summoned into a fantasy world, but he doesn't last 13 seconds like my girlfriend's ex because he is defeated almost immediately. He somehow manages to come back to life and start simping for the same girl who got him isekai'd. Trust me guys, it's even more ridiculous than I make it sound. It was a regular night, and Subaru was at his local convenience store reading manga and buying stuff. Suddenly, he started having flashes of some spooky things, but he chucked it up to being so long in his room gaming all day. Yeah, I usually see some scary stuff once I stand up from a 12-hour gaming session too, like 10 missed calls from my girlfriend. When he left the store, he wiped his eyes, and in the literal blink of an eye, he was in another world. Strangely enough, he didn't seem fazed by it. In fact, he went around like it was his everyday life, but he soon realized just how much he stood out after stumbling into the women's bathroom and entering a demi-human-only bar, which led to him falling into a river. That's a pretty rough start. While he was ranting about having a horrible start in this new life, a couple of thugs came to mug him. Come on, give this guy a break. As they were mugging him, a girl ran toward them. Subaru thought she was the cute girl who summoned him, but she was just a thief and ran off, leaving him with the muggers. Subaru thought he could use some crazy power-up and beat down the thugs, which seemed to be working, but once they brought out the knives, he fell to his knees and started begging. They started kicking him around. Then suddenly, another beautiful girl came. She asked for the whereabouts of her insignia, but the muggers told her it was another girl. Before she left, she took care of the muggers, and even healed Subaru. She just met this guy, and she's doing all this for him. Maybe Subaru isn't so unlucky after all. Once Subaru woke up, she questioned him about the girl thief, and once she established that he didn't know she left. But Subaru knew that someone as kind as her wouldn't last long in the harsh world. So, he followed her to help find the thief. They searched the whole capital and didn't find anything. After a while, they rested at a balcony. And while they were talking, they both realized they hadn't introduced themselves. Subaru went first. The spirit rabbit called himself Puck, and the girl introduced herself as Satella. After introductions, they went back to finding the girl. They weren't making any progress, but Satella noticed a small girl who was lost. She went to help her, but it didn't go so well, so Subaru came in and did some magic tricks to cheer her up. After holding hands with the girl and guiding her to her mother, Subaru and Satella continued their search. But it was getting late, and they were making no headway. The genius Subaru suggested they go back to the crime scene and look for clues there. When they got there, Subaru met the shopkeeper he ran into earlier, but the man wasn't happy to see Subaru. Apparently, he hates broke people. Well, I already know I won't get along well with that man. The man was chasing them out of his shop when his wife came along with his daughter. Turns out, the girl Subaru helped was the man's daughter. What a coincidence. The man quickly switched up his attitude and agreed to help them. He told them. The girl thief's name was Felt, and she usually stayed in the slums. So, they went off to the slums. The slums were as shady as you'd imagine, but they kept searching anyway. After a while of turning up nothing, Satella decided to talk to the lesser spirits for help. Subaru and Satella kept searching around the slums for Felt. They were heading in the general direction where the lesser spirits told Satella to go. It led them to a shop run by an old man. Subaru told Satella to wait outside while he checked the place out. Alpha male type movement. I see you, Subaru. As soon as he got in, he saw a dead man on the floor, but before he could properly think of what to do next, he got hit by something and heard a voice from the darkness. Subaru bled out on the floor. Satella, who grew anxious waiting, came in to check on Subaru and got defeated for it. Subaru reached out to her and, with his dying breath, swore that he'd protect her. Suddenly, he woke up at the beginning of the day again. He was at the shop of the man who hates broke guys. Subaru couldn't understand what was going on, but he didn't let that slow him down. He started running toward the shop where he got defeated. Those unwise muggers stopped him again, but this time he dispatched them very quickly and continued running. When he got to the old man's shop, he banged on the door and surprisingly, the old man came out. The man invited him in and they both sat down. Subaru was trying to make small talk. Not sure why though, considering the killer could come back at any point. After sizing up the old man, Ram, he asked if he had the insignia. Ram said that he didn't, but was expecting a good haul of loot later on. So, Subaru went outside to wait for Felt. Once she came, he tried talking to her casually, but she didn't recognize him. But all that was irrelevant. They went inside to talk, and Felt showed them the insignia. Felt asked Subaru to pay up if he wanted it, but he told them he was flat broke. I've never seen someone so proud to be broke. Instead, he asked them to trade it for his cell phone. He told them it was a different kind of magic that could freeze moments in time, and they fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Well, everything seemed to have worked out, and Subaru was about to claim his prize. But Felt decided to wait until the other buyer came and sell it to the highest bidder. Ugh, what a pain in the butt. I can already tell this won't end well. The other buyer came after a while. Her name was Elsa. Felt explained the situation to Elsa, and after hearing it, she showed that she wasn't there to play either. She offered 20 holy coins for the insignia, but Rom refused her offer, saying that Subaru's cell phone was more valuable. That's a smart man right there. Elsa was disappointed, but she decided to withdraw and leave. Once again, everything seemed to have worked out, but Subaru just had to ruin it with his stupid mouth. Before Elsa left, she asked what Subaru would do with the insignia, and this dummy said he'd find the owner and give it back. You're in the midst of a thief, a scam artist, and an unknown enemy. Why would you say something so naive and stupid? Of course, Elsa heard that and immediately switched up. See? I knew this wouldn't end well. Rom stood up to challenge her, but she sliced his arm off and choked him with his own cup. Felt rushed in but got cut up straight away. Subaru tried his heroics, but in the end, even though he landed a good hit on her, she still defeated him anyway. After he died, he saw himself back at the apple shop again. After Subaru woke up, he passed out almost immediately. The shopkeeper poured water on him to wake him up and even offered him food. But in that moment, he saw Satella and ran toward her, calling out her name. Satella stopped, and Subaru began apologizing for what happened and not coming to meet her sooner. But when she turned around, she was furious with him. She didn't recognize Subaru, and she asked him why he called her by the jealous witch's name. Subaru was confused, and so am I. Didn't she tell him to call her that? Satella turned away to continue going about her day. Then suddenly, Felt ran by and snatched her insignia from her. Satella accused Subaru of working with her and ran off to catch her. Subaru went back into the same dark alley, and the same muggers showed up. He yelled at them and told them to go bother someone else, but as he barged his way through them, he also ran into the mugger's knife. He fell to the floor and slowly died. When he woke up, he was in front of the apple shop again. This time, he calmly analyzed things. He realized that he had a time leap ability. The messy part about the ability was that it got triggered only by death. So, he decided to just sell off his items and live the rest of his days in luxury, free from danger. But he remembered that Satella took the time to help him even when it didn't concern or affect her. He couldn't just leave her to her fate. That's beta male behavior. So he ran to the market square to try and stop the theft, but he was too late. So he went to the alley to try and catch Felt and buy it before she went to Rom's shop. Subaru ran into the muggers. I'm so tired of seeing their faces, especially the one with the knife. I hope he falls on it. But instead of beating them down like he did, he screamed for the guards. One guard came, a man named Reinhard. The muggers ran away as soon as they saw him. Subaru thanked him for his help and asked him to tell Satella to stay away from the loot house and that he'd bring the insignia back to her. Subaru went to the slums to find Felt, but he bumped into Elsa. She could smell the fear coming from him, but she decided to just walk away. After that traumatic run-in, he went to Felt's house. She wasn't home, but she came there not long after and started attacking Subaru for searching through her things. Kill first, ask questions never. But after a while, Subaru got a word in and told her he wanted to buy the insignia. He showed her the cell phone he wanted to trade it for, but she wouldn't believe it unless Rom appraised it in front of her. When they showed it to Rom, he concurred with Subaru's value tag, but Felt was still hesitant to sell it. What is wrong with this girl? First, she wanted the highest bidder. Now she's being cautious? What an annoying brat. Subaru finally told them that his reason for wanting the insignia was to return it to the owner. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Subaru told Felt not to open it because they'd be isekai-ed, but Felt ignored him and did it anyway. To his surprise, it was Satella at the door. Subaru was shocked to see the silver-haired girl, but it didn't matter. The silver-haired girl brought out a few icicles to threaten Felt so she'd give up the insignia. Subaru urged Felt to give it to her, but just then, Subaru quickly noticed a blade about to hit the silver-haired girl, so he called out to Puck to shield her. The shield blocked the attack successfully, but who the hell walks into a house and starts swinging blades? Well, turns out it was Elsa. She's really starting to piss me off with those blades of hers. Elsa was surprised that the silver-haired girl used spirit magic, but all she could think of was how she'd dissect the spirit and see its guts on some Jeffrey Dahmer-type movements. Subaru started yapping at Elsa, but he was really buying time for Puck to gather a spell together and attack. Puck started to attack Elsa, but she was way too fast to be pinned down with ice. Old Man Ram stood up to join in the attack, but he didn't do much to help. In fact, he got isekai'd fairly quickly. Puck had to go because his contract ended by 5, so the silver-haired girl sent him off and continued fighting with Elsa. Subaru was in the corner acting like an older brother. He told Felt to run after he created an opening. It's crazy how this all started because Felt couldn't just do business properly, and now she gets to just run away and live? Nah, I'm an advocate for gender equality. She should stay. Felt managed to safely get out, so it was down to Subaru and the silver-haired girl. Elsa had grown bored of their fight, so she tried ending things quickly. Subaru lunged at her and tried a sneaky move, but Elsa caught it and was about to kill him. Then suddenly, someone burst through the roof. It was Reinhard. Reinhard heard the cries of Felt as she ran through the slums asking for help, so he came as soon as he could. Once he did, everything he did literally gave off alpha male aura. Elsa tried attacking him, and he just kicked her away like she was nothing. Then he proceeded to deliver the coldest line yet. She asked him if he was going to draw his sword, and he said that he uses his sword when the need arises, and the fact that his sword hadn't been drawn yet means it's not needed right now. Now that right there is a violation. To add insult to injury, he then picked up a regular sword and said it would be enough to suffice for her. I didn't know Reinhard could be savage like that. He fended off all her attacks while he stood in one spot as if waiting for something, and he was. The silver-haired girl was healing Ram, and she was using mana. She explained to Subaru that if Reinhard were to actually put effort into fighting her, all the mana in the area would move to him. She was not exaggerating too, because as soon as she finished healing Ram, Reinhard swung his sword and destroyed the entire house. While everyone celebrated being alive, Elsa tried another sneak attack, but Subaru blocked it, and Elsa had no other choice but to run away. Subaru then turned to the silver-haired girl, and after putting on a goofy act, he asked for her real name. She told him it was Emilia. Reinhard told Subaru he was lucky the weapon saved him, but it turns out it barely did. Emilia quickly saved him and offered to take him to her house. Reinhard, on the other hand, took a good look at Felt and suddenly grabbed her hand. He told Emilia that he'd be taking her to his house and she'd hear from him soon. So kidnapping is okay now? Subaru woke up in a fancy room and noticed his scars were gone. He went out to find Emilia, but quickly realized that the hallway was a looping one. So, he guessed, and opened a random door to find a short girl there. The girl, for some reason, was irritated by Subaru, so she zapped him to see if he was an enemy or not. Once Subaru was in pain on the floor, she walked away. Who got her ponytails in a twist. Subaru woke up later in the morning, but this time he was greeted by 2 beautiful maids. He was close to enacting his fantasies when Emilia came in, so he had to compose himself. Subaru thanked her for saving him, and she thanked him for risking his life for her as well. When they got out of the house, Subaru showed Emilia some calisthenics stretches for a nice morning exercise. After the exercises, Subaru made Emilia shout out in victory. Puck couldn't help but join in on the fun. He thanked Subaru for saving Emilia and offered to do anything as thanks. Subaru just told him he wanted access to pet him at any point in time, to which Puck gladly agreed. While this was happening, the maids came and called Emilia to the house, saying that the lord of the house had arrived. Once Subaru got in, he was met by Beatrice again, and they locked horns, but she got distracted by Puck and ran off with him to play. Just then, a man wearing a very colorful outfit walked in. Subaru thought he was the local clown and went up to pat the guy on the back. He was actually the lord of the house, Roswal L. Mathers. I'm pretty sure in regular times, Subaru would have had his fingers cut off for such acts, but Roswal let it slide. At the table while they ate, Roswal told Subaru about the state of things in the kingdom and how the king was absent from the throne. Subaru was still trying to soak up all this information when Emilia dropped a bomb on him. She was the next candidate to rule the entire kingdom. An even crazier one dropped right after. Remember that insignia? Well, it's supposed to be a symbol that the next potential candidate is supposed to hold. No wonder Elsa was killing for it. If she'd gotten it, war would have broken out. Subaru realized that he had helped out way more than he thought, so to show his kindness, Roswal offered him any request, and Subaru told him that he wanted a job at the mansion. And, for the rest of the week, Subaru was drilled on how to clean, cook, and do other things around the house. However, he sucked at every single one of them, to the point where everything he did gave him a cut. Looks like his fingers got cut, after all. After a couple of days, one night, Subaru was with Emilia out in the fields talking and enjoying himself. Emilia noticed his wounds from working so hard and offered to heal them, but Subaru wanted to keep them as a reminder that he worked hard. They talked for a while, and Subaru invited her out on a date, and she said yes. Looks like his Riz game is still strong. He went to bed that night excited about tomorrow, but come morning, something strange happened. Subaru had reset time again, but he didn't understand how or why. He was so upset because all of what had happened before, including his promise to Amelia, had just vanished like it never happened. He ran into the forbidden library to where Beatrice was and just sat there depressed. She gave him one snarky remark after another, and suddenly, he was feeling better. Something about her attitude being the same made him feel all right. When he went outside to Amelia, she ran to him and told him she had been worried. "Oh, that's so sweet." He reassured her that he was okay and everything would be fine. With that, Subaru decided to face the day with a mind determined not to be sad about the situation. Subaru figured that if he followed the same pattern as last time, everything would happen in the same way. But he was wrong. All of his choices from last time had different outcomes each, and at some point, he found himself sharing a bath with Rosewall himself. They spoke about the maids and how one compensates for the other. When Subaru stood up to leave the bath, he met Ram, and she immediately told him to put away his sorry excuse for a man tool. Ouch! She asked him whether he'd be doing anything later, and he said no, so she said she'd come over to his room at night. Oh, hold on. Maybe she doesn't think it's so sorry after all. She probably wants a taste after seeing it. Subaru was in his room trying not to think of all the things he could do to her, but he was failing. Ram walked in and was creeped out. She went over to the corner and asked Subaru to come over. Oh, snap! Is my boy Subaru about to get some? Subaru was woodblocking himself and told Ram that he had eyes only for Amelia, but Ram just wanted to teach him how to read and write. Apparently, the more Subaru was able to do, the less the twins had to do. Well, that was anticlimactic. Subaru spent the night reading, and after a while he turned to talk to Ram, but she was already fast asleep. The next day, Subaru tried on his working clothes, and they fit perfectly. They all started working, and Subaru already cut his finger peeling the apple skins off. Rem kept looking back at Subaru. When they went out to the garden, Rem still kept looking at Subaru, so Ram spoke up and told Subaru to let Rem cut his hair. Apparently, seeing it very uneven made her uncomfortable. Later, as Subaru was cleaning the bath, Rem entered and joined him. He tried rizzing her up, but it didn't work in the slightest. After they were done cleaning, Subaru and Rem went out to get some things. Well, Rem did, actually. Subaru just played around with the kids instead, and also used the chance to scope out a nice spot for his date with Amelia. When he got home at night, the twins were tired, so Amelia took over his study session, and he was extremely nervous. I would be too if I saw Amelia in a nightgown. But Subaru didn't beat around the bush. He looked her in the eye and asked her out. First, he had to explain what a date was, but once Amelia understood what he was trying to say, she agreed to the date. Subaru tried to stay up that night to finally break the loop and go on his date with Amelia, but he suddenly started feeling sick and in pain all over. He ran across the house for help, but before he knew it, his arm was cut off and he was dying. Subaru woke up screaming and grabbing his left arm, but he soon realized that he had reset the loop again. Now it was his first day in the mansion. He went back to the library and started pacing around Beatrice while pondering what to do. As soon as he was able to break down what had happened, Beatrice sent him flying into a bush of manure. Amelia approached him just then and summoned Puck to wash him down. After creating a massive water barrage to wash Subaru off, Puck started making fun of Subaru. Yeah, sure, make fun of him because he's wet. Wait, that sounds so wrong. Subaru then started tickling and play fighting with Puck. Amelia saw this and started laughing. Turns out seeing Puck and Subaru play so carefree with each other really made her happy. While they were enjoying themselves in the garden, the twins came along to invite Amelia and Subaru to meet Rosewall. This time, when Rosewall asked Subaru what he wanted, Subaru asked to be a permanent guest at the house. He chose this so he could use the next 4 days to observe who could potentially be the killer, and who he could have a threesome with. Just kidding. Just kidding. He went around the house searching for clues, but all he found was Rosewall acting like a very creepy guy. He looks like a ripoff of X-Men's Nightcrawler. Subaru went to his room to try and gather his thoughts, but it wasn't going well. He had no leads on the culprit. He went to ask Beatrice for help. He asked her if there was a spell that could forcefully put someone to sleep and kill them. Beatrice showed him one, but told him they were referred to as curses, and that what it did was zap out the mana from a person, kind of like what she did to him when they first met. She told him that only she and Puck could do it, and not even Rosewall could. This gave Subaru some insight, but he was still without a good lead. Later in the evening, Ram walked in to serve him tea and sat down to enjoy it with him. He told her that he was getting the hang of reading and writing the children's books. He even offered to tell her a story called The Red Ogre and the Blue Ogre. After hearing it, Ram said she hated the story because of how selfish the Red Ogre was. They changed subjects, and Subaru told Ram how he now understood more of the kingdom's culture and history. But When he asked about the story of the witch, Ram refused to talk more about it and left immediately. The next day was the final day when Subaru was usually isekai'd, so he decided to leave the mansion and venture elsewhere to try and get the upper hand on the attacker. He said his goodbyes to the family, and once he was out of sight, he went into the forest to spy on Emilia's room in case something was to happen. Suddenly, a giant ball pushed Subaru over the ledge, but he had made arrangements for it and ran into an opening. He waited for the culprit to show themselves, but when they did, Subaru was heartbroken. It was Rem. Subaru was distraught by the fact that Rem was trying to kill him. He used his phone's flash to blind her temporarily and ran away, but it was no use. She caught up to him instantly and cut off his leg. As if that wasn't bad enough, she then healed the leg so she could interrogate him further. Whenever she asked him a question, she hit him with the chain. After continuously hitting him, she then had an emotional outburst. Apparently, she had assumed Subaru was working with the witch who had taken everything from her and Ram. Subaru started to cry and had an emotional outburst of his own, but Rem didn't want to hear it. So while he was talking, she put him out of his misery and isekai'd him. Wow, what a plot twist. I can barely keep up anymore. When Subaru woke up, he was met by the maids again, and he was overcome with fear. Soon after, Emilia came in to try and talk to him. She asked him to tell her what he was going through, but as soon as he tried to explain things to her, something came out of nowhere and gripped his heart with fear. He became hopeless after that, and told Emilia to just leave him alone. Man, Subaru is really going through it. Later in the day, Beatrice came in to talk to him at the request of Emilia and Puck, but he told her he was fine, and she didn't have to stay. The librarian felt somewhat offended that he thought she cared. She said something strange, though. She told Subaru that he had the stench of the witch. Okay, who the hell is this witch? And why won't anyone talk about her? Subaru was still very scared, so he asked Beatrice for a favor. He told her to protect him until the 5th day, so the librarian made a contract and agreed to do it. Later, on the 4th night, Subaru was having nightmares about being isekai'd by Rem, but he felt Beatrice's hands on his own, and things suddenly calmed down. Not long after, the librarian dragged Subaru into the library to protect him better until the 5th day. After a while, Beatrice was summoned, so she left Subaru in the library. Subaru was scared to go outside, but he did it anyway. When he saw the morning sun, he was so relieved. Emilia came not long after to see him, and he was just happy to see her. But while he was rambling about all the things he wanted to do with her, he heard a scream. It was Ram, crying over Rem's dead body. Subaru tried to get closer, but Ram slapped his hand away. Subaru went to the back of the room. Subaru wanted to tell them what was happening, but that fear was still gripping his heart. Ram demanded that he tell them if he knew something, but he just apologized and ran away. He ran to the forest and found a cliff, but he couldn't bring himself to jump. He fell asleep there, and when he woke up, Beatrice was right beside him. Apparently, she never put a time limit on their contract, so she was still obligated to protect him. But it didn't take long for Ram to find them. Subaru decided to face things head-on and fix things by resetting and doing better. So, in an effort to look heroic, he leapt off the cliff to his death. When Subaru came to and saw Rem and Ram, he held their hands to be reminded of their warmth, but they were just weirded out by him. Emilia came in, and Subaru was filled with joy once more. And with that, he started his new plan. He worked his butt off on the first day after telling Rosewall that he wanted to work in the mansion. The cooking, the cleaning, he did it all and more. After his morning duties, he went to lay down in the grass, and Puck came along. Puck admonished him for working so hard on his first day, but Subaru just said that he had more to do. Subaru asked about Emilia's magic, but Puck told him that Emilia didn't use magic. She instead used spirit arts. Puck explained the difference and told Subaru that everyone has a different magic attribute, along with a magic gate, which is used to control said attributes. This made Subaru excited, and he asked Puck to check what his own was. Subaru's attribute was Shadow, one of the rarer types. It was basically like debuff magic. Puck showed Subaru an example, and it was very terrifying. He couldn't talk or see or do anything. Talk about nightmare fuel. Subaru asked if he could do such spells too, and Puck said he could with the right training. They went ahead to try it out, but Subaru exploded his mana and wore himself out. Apparently, his gate isn't well used, so he's unable to control his magic output properly. While he was laying there, he realized that he couldn't move because his mana had been depleted. Emilia and Puck told him to rest, but Subaru refused and tried standing up anyway. So, Emilia gave him a fruit to eat that restores mana. Although, I'm sure Subaru would have preferred a different fruit from Emilia. Later that night, Subaru thought about all he did that day, and he felt like he did enough, but he still had no idea how to deal with the shaman attack. So he asked Beatrice if it was possible to nullify curses. Beatrice told him there wasn't, but if the curse hadn't been activated yet, then she could nullify it. Then Beatrice mentioned that Subaru smelled like the witch. Subaru asked who the witch was, and Beatrice explained. Finally, someone could tell us who she is. She was known as Satella, a witch who, long ago, devoured 6 other witches that bore the names of the deadly sins and drained half of the world dry. Beatrice went on about how terrible of a person the witch is. The next day, he did his routine yell of victory in the morning and went to rizz up Amelia afterward. Once he left to work, Amelia told Puck she was worried about him, and Puck agreed. He could tell that Subaru's mind was confused. Subaru spent all day trying to work and do good in the house, but he broke down in the bathroom and hurled his guts out. As soon as he finished, he left to continue, but Amelia was outside waiting for him. She took him back inside the room and put his head on her lap. And just like that, Subaru slowly started to break down into tears, and Amelia comforted him through all of it. Later that night, Subaru went to the library to meet Beatrice and rant about what happened with Amelia. Subaru got over himself and asked Beatrice more about curses. She told him that it needed physical contact to activate, and he recalled that he had only touched the villagers apart from the people at the mansion. So, he asked the girls to follow him to buy ingredients, and they agreed. Subaru went to town and was having a blast with the townsfolk. He taught them calisthenics and even his signature shout of victory, but his main goal was for everyone to touch him. Not sure why though, some sort of kink? After it seemed like he was done, a girl came up to him and directed him toward an open area. Apparently, her dog was there. The dog seemed to hate Subaru, and it even bit him, which was odd. I mean, sure, he's an obnoxious buffoon who likes to ramble a lot, but that's no reason to bite him. Or is it? I can't tell. Subaru went back home, and on his way in, Roswal was heading out to meet with someone, which hadn't happened before. Roswal asked Subaru to look after Amelia, and he flew off. Just casually took off to the skies. I wish I could fly too. Moving on, Subaru went to see Beatrice and asked her to check if he had been cursed. She didn't want to at first, but Subaru, with his sneaky ways, managed to convince her. She quickly identified the spot of the curse as the point where the dog bit Subaru. Subaru quickly realized that the kids who were playing with the dog were in danger of being cursed too. He ran to the sisters to ask for help, and as they were debating who would go, Amelia came downstairs. Subaru kept it hidden from her for her own safety, so Amelia gave him the blessings of the spirits so that he would return safely. He ran off with Rem, and when he got there, the village was a mess. Everyone was looking for the children. They had gone missing. Subaru feared he was too late, but he remembered another spot and went there to check. When he got there, he saw that the barrier in the forest had been broken. He also saw footprints leading into the forest, so he told the villager to call the rest and asked Rem to follow him to get the kids. Rem hesitated, but she noticed that he had steeled out his resolve, even though he was trembling. So she followed him in. It didn't take long before they found the kids, but they were all weak and on the verge of death. Rem got to healing the kids, but one of the kids, Petra, told Subaru that a girl was taken. Subaru immediately sprang into action and went to find her. Rem asked him why he was risking so much, and what if she couldn't find him, but Subaru knew that she'd always find him because he smelled like the witch. So, he made a promise not to die, and that after this was done, he'd have a long talk with Rem. She agreed and let Subaru go. Subaru searched for a while and found the kid, but as soon as he went to get her, a Maybeast attacked him. He managed to kill it, but there were multiple waiting in the shadows. He protected the girl and embraced his death, but Rem came along and isekai'd the beasts. Not today, Satan. She created a distraction and they ran toward the village, but as they were almost there, Subaru looked back and saw Rem in a banged up state. She lunged forward and pushed Subaru out of the way of an attack and fell on her head. As all hope seems lost, Rem stood back up and grew a horn from her head. Then she went beast mode and massacred the Maybeasts. As she was having her fun, a couple of Maybeasts ambushed her from up top. Subaru pushed her out of the way, but they attacked him and he passed out. Subaru woke up in a different place, but this time he didn't reset. They barely managed to save his life. Puck came out from under Amelia and gave Subaru the breakdown of what happened. Bottom line, the kids were safe and everyone was okay. Subaru went out and saw Ram outside. She stuffed a potato in his mouth for some odd reason and then told him basically what Puck did. This time, Subaru went around doing checkups on the kids to be sure they were okay. Once he saw that they were, he went out for a walk and saw Beatrice. Beatrice took him to a corner and told him that he only had half a day to live due to the curses inflicted on him when he got attacked by those beasts. Subaru didn't look scared in the slightest, and Beatrice was confused as to why, if only she knew. Subaru asked if there was a way to stop it, and Beatrice said there was. She explained that the curses would activate when the dogs replenished their mana, and he had to isekai them before that happened. Subaru then recalled hearing a voice while he was half asleep, saying that they would save him no matter what. He realized it was Rem. Beatrice confirmed that Rem had gone to isekai the beast for Subaru's sake. Ram overheard it and wanted to quickly rush to meet her. Subaru dragged her back and asked if she could fight as well as Ram. Ram said she couldn't, but she had very strong wind magic. With that said, Subaru made a plan and headed to the forest with Ram. When they got there, Subaru was already struggling to keep up. I mean, he had just woken up from a near-death experience, and he's already back to fighting. Of course he'd be struggling. Ram took care of most of the monsters as they kept going. When they had gotten far enough, the beasts started increasing in number. It wasn't long before Ram lost the strength to keep fighting. Subaru carried her and ran around until he jumped off a cliff. This guy has really taken a liking to cliffs lately. What's going on? He managed to make it to the ground with some quick thinking and Ram's magic, but Ram was tapped out and couldn't move anymore. Subaru tried a crazy tactic and talked about his death loop. This made the beasts want to come near him and isekai him due to the scent of the witch on him. As the dogs kept falling for it, Rem kept swinging her mace chain. Subaru then made another crazy move in order to stop Rem's rampage. He flung Ram at her and then ran to hit her on the head like Ram had told him, but it didn't connect because he chickened out at the last second. As soon as he got the next opening, he went in for the hit. Since they were born, Ram and Rem have always had a rough childhood. For starters, they were twins, and everyone believed twins were a bad omen. But Ram showed promise from a young age, and it made her grow into a prodigy that everyone loved and respected. But one day, while Rem was asleep, some people attacked the village, and Ram was keeping them at bay. But as soon as Rem came out, Ram got distracted, and the enemy used that to cut off her horn. But rather than feel sad, Rem felt happy that Ram lost her horn, and so she carried that guilt with her the whole time. When Rem came to, she saw that Subaru and Ram were carrying her back to safety. She asked Subaru why he came back knowing that he could die. Subaru gave her a quick headbutt and told her that it was always better to have more people on board than to take something on alone. Solid advice, but did he really have to give her the headbutt? Now I see how the snake Hashira felt when Tanjiro did it to him. The gang kept running for their lives, and Subaru asked which way would get them to town the fastest. After figuring out it was the left, he planned to use himself as a sacrifice and let the girls go. Why is everyone so eager to die today? He sent the girls off and went to face the beasts alone. Rem couldn't bear to run away and leave him behind, but Ram wanted to keep going. They both fell over, and Rem looked back to see what was happening. Subaru pulled out his only magic spell and blinded all the beasts in the area. Then he jumped up to stab the alpha beast in the chest, but it kept going even after that. Now that's an alpha right there. Just as Subaru seemed to have lost hope, Roswal came and cleaned up the beasts that were left. Once he was done, Rem jumped on Subaru, and he fainted. My man wasn't ready for all that loving at once. When he came to, he saw the familiar ceiling and thought he had reset everything, but he quickly noticed Rem's hand interlocked with his. Rem expressed how grateful she was that he saved her life, and in the same breath, criticized herself for not being as good as her sister. Subaru made her realize that it's okay for her to be better than Ram in a lot of areas. In fact, as far as he knows, she was objectively superior to Ram. And he added that even though he hadn't heard the circumstances that led to Ram losing her horn, it didn't matter. He just told Rem to use the horn enough for the both of them. Subaru told Rem to look forward to tomorrow and laugh because she had a tomorrow to look forward to. She worried that she'd have to rely on Subaru again, but he gladly welcomed the potential prospect of that happening. And with that, he comforted Rem. Out in the garden, Subaru and Amelia were talking about how Subaru always got hurt, but Amelia once again acknowledged that she was now in his debt. So he asked for the obvious reward, a date with her, and she said yes. The next day, Subaru and Amelia went back to do calisthenics with the townsfolk. He had become very popular with the kids, even though all he did was get bitten by dogs. Okay, nah, I won't do my boy dirty like that. When they got back, a carriage was in front of the house. It belonged to an emissary who had come concerning the royal selection. Amelia immediately had to go and leave Subaru behind. So, with nothing better to do, Subaru got the finest tea in the house and went to enjoy it with the butler outside. While they were talking, Subaru tried to ask him the reason for his visit, but he wouldn't budge. Just then, a girl with cat ears came to the carriage and wondered what was going on. Her name was Felix. It wasn't until Subaru went back inside that Roswal told him about Amelia's plans to visit the capital. Subaru immediately suggested that he go with her to help in any way he could. But Roswal also pointed out that it was best he got treatment for his magic gate while he was there too. When they got there, Amelia wouldn't let go of Subaru's hand. She was scared he'd go off and do some stupid things again. That's how I feel when my girlfriend is with me at the mall. Subaru stopped by the Apple shop and made good on his promise to come back and buy some. Next, they wanted to go see Reinhard and Felt, so Amelia suggested going to the office of the guards. When they got there, Amelia was greeted by someone who recognized her from before. His name was Julius, and this guy was a hottie. But to make things worse, he knelt down and kissed Amelia's hand. Subaru was losing his mind. He was probably contemplating how to stab the guy and get away with it. Amelia then had to go in for a meeting with him, so Subaru could do nothing but stay outside like a good boy. While he was waiting outside, he saw a bunch of guys drag a woman into a corner. He went ahead to try and save her, but she slapped his hand off her with the quickness. The muggers turned out to be the same ones that mugged him on his first day in the parallel world. So rather than fight them, he just bluffed that he knew powerful people who could come and mess them up. Coincidentally, Ram happened to be passing by, so the muggers ran off. Ram and Subaru exchanged greetings, and Subaru thanked him for the save. But Ram asked Subaru if he had seen Felt. Subaru told him that Reinhard took her, and Ram suddenly had a suspicious look on his face. Without saying much else, Ram left. On the way back, Amelia asked Subaru where he met the woman from. He thought she was being jealous, but after he realized she wasn't, she just told him to forget about the whole thing. At home, Amelia told Subaru to wait while she went to the meeting. She wanted him to relax and properly heal, so she made him promise not to overdo himself. But the promise didn't mean jack, because as soon as he could, he ran out and hitched a ride with the woman he saved earlier to the castle. Turns out she's also a candidate for the throne. Her name was Priscilla Bariel. When they got to the castle, Subaru met up with Amelia. She tried getting him to leave, but Roswal cut in and told her not to fuss over it. Once the conference commenced, the leader of the Imperial Knights began the formalities, but a few of the others didn't care for that, so they hurried things along. Their reason for everyone gathering was because a new prophecy had been written down, saying that 5 candidates would compete. But there were only 4, who was the last one. Suddenly Reinhard got called forward, and he presented the 5th and final candidate. It was Felt. Felt walked in graciously and came up to Reinhard. Then, without warning, threw a roundhouse kick at him. That's not very demure of her. Felt was yapping about not knowing why she was there. Subaru came up to her to try and console her, but she gave him a kick to the side as well. Call me crazy, but I think someone probably kicked her to the curb recently. Get it? 'Cause she's kicking everyone? Okay, not my best work. I'll do better. Moving on, the knight told her to come stand next to the other princesses. Reinhard placed an insignia in her hand, and it glowed, proving to everyone that she was, in fact, recognized as a potential candidate for the throne. Everyone gasped, but they were still adamant about accepting Felt as a princess. So, the Council of Wise Men asked Reinhard to explain how he discovered Felt, but as soon as he mentioned she wasn't of noble birth, everyone started throwing insults at her. Felt was obviously ready for the smoke, but Reinhard stepped in and stopped the whole thing. Once they were done with all that, the leader of the Imperial Knights asked the princesses to come forward and make their claims. Each of them had different views on how the kingdom should be ruled, but once it got to Felt, she straight up said she didn't want to be there. The wise men and congregation became furious, and for some reason started throwing shade at Amelia too for being a half-elf. Subaru wasn't about to let that slide, so he called the wise men out for being poopheads. They asked what his affiliation with Amelia was, and he told them he was her best knight. This didn't end well, because Julius called his bluff and exposed him for not being a proper knight. This made Amelia renounce him as her attendant, and he got kicked out. Man, that's tough. Just then, out of nowhere, a smokescreen appeared, and someone kidnapped Felt. Reinhard split the smoke in half to find that it was Ram. They were about to execute him, but Felt told them that she would run for the throne, so they let Ram off the hook. Felt was back in the selection for the throne, but she openly declared that she hates everything about the kingdom and plans to bring it down. Finally, someone with some guts to bring down the system. Let's go, Felt. Elsewhere, Julius issued a challenge to Subaru and was about to fight him. They used wooden swords and began fighting. A knight ran to tell the princesses about what was happening. Apparently, the fight was so heavily one-sided that they had to find someone to stop it. Wow, Subaru is really on a bad streak, and he looked even worse. Julius was fighting him literally with his hand behind his back and barely putting in any effort, but Subaru kept holding his ground. Eventually, Amelia got to the arena and yelled at Subaru to stop, but he used the slight moment to blind Julius. His efforts were in vain, though. because Julius cut him down anyway. When he came to, Emilia was right beside him. She told him that she would be leaving him in the capital. Subaru begged for forgiveness and told her he was doing it all for her, but Emilia wasn't hearing it. She was tired of him breaking promises and being selfish. Subaru had an emotional outburst, yelling about how she owed him so much. So Emilia decided to settle it for good and leave. After what happened with Emilia, Subaru used that anger and sadness to discipline himself and train with the sword. He trained rigorously for 3 days since he arrived at the abode of Crush, one of the candidates. After getting beaten up by the butler who was training him, he woke up in the lap of Rem. She had been with him the whole time. She consoled him and asked him to go with her to the town to get a change of scenery. They went the next day, and while they were out, Subaru bumped into the Apple shopkeeper. They were looking at the notice board with the 5 princess candidates. The shopkeeper criticized Emilia like everyone else had, and Subaru was livid about it. He started yelling at the shopkeeper, but the shopkeeper hit him with the reality of things, and Subaru quickly kept quiet. As long as people only saw Emilia as being from the same race as the witch, they would always criticize and hate her. Later that night, Subaru was going up the stairs, and he met Crush. She invited him for drinks while they stared at the stars. Okay, maybe things aren't so bad after all. My boy is about to get some from one of the princesses. Let's go, Subaru. They were on the balcony, sipping drinks and chilling. Crush offered Subaru a drink, but he refused. Ugh, I can already tell this doesn't go anywhere. What a waste of excitement. Felix then walks in on them, and they begin to advise Subaru to find something he can do to help Emilia. Subaru smirks in a very creepy way when he hears that. The next day, while he was training, the butler noticed his change in attitude, but that wasn't all. He noticed that Subaru had given up on becoming strong, so he saw no point in training him any further. Just then, Rem came to find Subaru. They went to the living room, and Rem told them that something was happening at the mansion. Subaru gave that creepy smirk again, and told Rem that they had to leave. Crush said he could, but told him that she had a contractual agreement with Emilia about healing his magic gate, and if he should leave her house, he would be considered an enemy. Subaru got really pissed, but he still left anyway. Okay, what's going on with Bro? Why is he crashing out? On the way, Subaru wondered why Emilia didn't want them knowing what was going on, but after moving for a whole day, they stayed the night at a village. At night, Subaru couldn't sleep, and Rem couldn't either, so she came to his room. She cuddled up next to him and used a spell on him. She said she was healing his magic gate, but she was really just putting him to bed. She knew his love for Emilia would make him do something reckless, so she did it to protect him, but part of her wanted some of that love too. The next morning, Subaru was furious after he woke up and realized Rem had left him behind. He searched and found a carriage to take him to the mansion. When the carriage got there, the beast was too scared to continue, and it was right not to, because after Subaru ran into town, he met the bodies of the dead villagers everywhere. He went to the mansion, hoping to find the girls safe, but when he got to the mansion, all he saw was the corpse of Rem, stabbed in the head. His world had just been flipped on its head. Subaru couldn't believe what he was seeing. Neither could I. Who could possibly have done this to Rem? It's not like she's a pushover in battle either. He went further into the house to investigate, and he saw Ram and Petra's corpses too. And in a secret hallway covered in ice, he found a bunch of the assailants frozen in place. When he tried to reach for the door handle there, his fingers literally froze off, and before he knew it, his entire body did as well. His time leap got activated, and he was back in front of the Apple shopkeeper. He saw Rem still alive and well and fell to his knees. Rem tried checking on him, but he hugged her and started laughing maniacally. His mental state was gone. I'm not even surprised. Seeing such a scene would mentally break anyone too. Rem brought him back to Crush's house to be treated, but even Felix had no idea what to do about him. And if Felix couldn't do it, no one in that household could. Rem opted to take him back home. She figured since he was periodically calling out Ram and Emilia's names, seeing them would help him recover. So they started their homeward journey. When they got to the domain of Rosewall, Rem noticed it was a bit too quiet. Suddenly, the head of their dragon beast was sliced off and their carriage crashed. It was those assailants Subaru saw last night. Rem didn't waste any time in killing them off, but while she was occupied, one of them ran off with Subaru. Subaru woke up in a cave to see a very weird man in front of him. His name was Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice told Subaru that he was a Sin Archbishop in the witch's cult, but Subaru was still out of it. One of the lackeys came to report to Beetlejuice that they had lost Rem and didn't know her whereabouts. Beetlejuice gave the lackey a beatdown, similar to what we saw a certain character do in a different anime. Basically, attempted murder. Beetlejuice told the rest of the lackeys to find Rem and bring him her head. Then Beetlejuice turned to Subaru Subaru to try and get some explanation out of him, but Subaru still couldn't bring himself to say anything. Suddenly, there was noise from the back. Rem had found her way to the cave and was mowing through the lackeys. She got pretty close to Subaru, but it wasn't enough. Beetlejuice used a strange power to hold her to the sky and twisted her limbs. Subaru saw this and started yelling angrily at Beetlejuice. He told him he would kill him, but Beetlejuice didn't pay him any mind. He just sent his lackeys back to work and left Subaru there to rot. Subaru kept screaming his lungs out, saying he would kill Beetlejuice. Then he heard a noise. It was Rem, dragging her body toward him. She broke his chains and told him to go on and live. Subaru took her body and walked to the Roswell mansion. When he got there, he saw the same scenery as last time. Ram dead by the kids, and the lackeys dead around her as well. And just when Subaru couldn't keep it together anymore, he saw a giant wolf burst out of the mansion. This wolf was apparently on demon time, because as soon as it noticed Subaru, it cut off his head. Subaru reset again, but this time when he turned to Rem, it looked like he was about to profess his love or something. However, that shopkeeper interrupted him, so he took Rem by the hand and walked with her. I hope that shopkeeper doesn't get some from his wife for 3 months. Rem told Subaru that the scent of the witch had grown stronger on him, so he told her to keep holding his hand to feel safe. When they got to Crush's mansion, Subaru sat everyone down and told them of the attack that was to happen in 3 days. Crush heard him out and gave the condition that if she helped, Amelia would drop out of the candidacy. But when Subaru agreed to her terms, she still refused to help. She told him that Amelia dropping out isn't really much to bargain with in the first place. Moreover, in all of his rambling, Subaru never once said he wanted to save Amelia. He only cared about killing the witch cult. So, in anger, he saw himself out of Crush's household. Rem was concerned for him, but Subaru was looking for someone he could count on. Reinhard was out of the country, so he decided to go ask Priscilla for help, while Rem went to the guard station. When he got to Priscilla's mansion, he explained the situation to her and asked for her help, but Priscilla refused as well. She did, however, commend him for his efforts, so she gave him a chance. She told him if he licked her feet, she would help him out. Subaru reluctantly agreed, and when he was about to do it, she kicked him so hard he probably broke his nose. She said that he had disgraced himself by doing that, and vowed to kill any camp he was a part of. Then, she threw him across the room and asked her knight to escort him out. What the hell? Didn't she tell him to do it in exchange for help? My gosh, women can be so unreasonably difficult. Subaru headed back to the market in search of help, but he couldn't find any. Just then, a little girl approached him and said he smelled of blood. The little girl pulled away, and the person who called her back was another candidate named Anastasia. They went to a restaurant to talk, and Subaru told her his predicament. He needed a ride back home, and Anastasia was willing to provide it, but she wanted information, which, unbeknownst to him, he had given away. She gave him a paper that would help him get a carriage, then she thanked him and told him that it was easy to get from him since all he does is want and nothing else. Subaru tried making a move at her, but the little girl from before already had him in range to be blown away. This isn't even fair. Anastasia had always planned to jump him if he acted stupid. These women are insane. Subaru and Rem entered the dragon carriage and headed home, but on their way, Subaru saw a familiar face from one of his past lives. So, he sat with them and offered them money in exchange for helping him save Amelia and the villagers. As they rode there, Rem asked Subaru to help her with the map. He brought it out and used his phone's flashlight to see better. But suddenly, he noticed there was a person missing, and when he looked up, he saw something terrifying. Subaru and the others were under attack by some creature moving at breakneck speed inside a fog. There was only one monster capable of such, the white whale. They kept maneuvering and trying to get out of the way, but the whale was persistent. So, Rem decided to sacrifice herself to make sure Subaru got to the mansion safely. Subaru begged her not to go and even hugged her tightly, but she knocked him out and told him she'd be watching over him always. When Subaru woke up, the carriage master, Otto, was still moving at full speed. Subaru asked him about Rem, and he told him about her sacrifice. He asked Otto to go back and save her, which was a very stupid idea. You're just gonna waste Rem's sacrifice like that? Otto hit him with a reality check and told him that not even a swordmaster was able to defeat it. But what happened next was very spooky. Subaru said something about Rem, and Otto asked who that was. What kind of sick joke is that? But it didn't look like Otto was faking it. He genuinely had no idea who Rem was. While they were arguing, the whale came back. Otto and Subaru kept wondering why the beast only chased them, but Subaru realized why. Turns out the whale is a beast, and it was drawn to Subaru. Once Subaru said this out loud, Otto pushed him off the cart and drove off without him. The whale attacked Subaru and he ran for his life. Subaru came to a hilltop and just lay there, about to accept death. But surprisingly, the whale didn't finish him off. So, Subaru continued his journey toward the mansion, and along the way, he saw the dragon carriage. Apparently, Otto got killed eventually by the whale. Serves him right for betraying Subaru. I mean, how could you just throw him to the beast so quickly? Anyway, Subaru mounted the carriage and headed back into town. He was greeted by the kids, and he was happy that he changed something this time. He passed out and woke up in his old bed. Ram was right beside him, but for a split second, he thought it was Rem and grabbed her hand. Ram insulted him as usual, but after their banter finished, Subaru laid the bad news on her. He told her about Rem's death and how he couldn't help her, but Ram told Subaru she didn't know who Rem was. Something strange is definitely going on. Subaru tried explaining to her, but Ram had no idea who Rem was. Nah, whoever is pulling the strings of this whole thing has to be some wicked, messed up person. Subaru tried checking Ram's room, but there was only one bed there. Ram told him to head back to his room and rest. But when has Subaru ever been known to listen to someone else? He went to meet Amelia and tried to get her to come with him, but she refused. Subaru then decided to tell her the whole truth, even if it kills him. As soon as he did, the hands came again to grab his heart, but this time they didn't. Instead, they killed Amelia. Subaru sat there in grief, and Beatrice walked in. He asked her to kill him, but she couldn't bring herself to, so she sent him far away from the house where he could die away from her eyes. As he got to the forest, Betelgeuse approached him and tried taking away Amelia's body, but Puck rained down ice bolts from the sky. He came for the smoke. Puck killed off the lackeys, and when Subaru tried to warn him, he just told him to be quiet. Betelgeuse used his shadow arms to hold Puck in place, but Puck broke free and started a blizzard. Betelgeuse started panicking and biting his fingers. He was bleeding out from everywhere blood could come out from. He quickly died, and soon after, Subaru died as well with maniacal laughter. When he got reset and saw Rem again, his heart didn't know what to do, so he skipped explanations and ran off with her. When they got to a balcony with a good view, Subaru asked Rem to run away with him. Hold up, what? So Subaru is changing teams now? I thought he was riding for Amelia. He told her that there was nothing they could do in the capital, so they had to leave. Rem was happy. She even painted out a scenario where they ended up getting married and settling down with kids in a faraway land, but she still said no. She knew that if they left together, a part of Subaru would still remain in the capital. Subaru yelled out at her and began airing out his frustrations again. Poor guy. He has really been going through it, from embarrassing himself at the palace to seeing Amelia and Rem die multiple times. Rem suggested they stay and figure something else out. She knew Subaru wasn't the kind of person to abandon something halfway, especially not people he cared about. Subaru didn't believe her. He kept convincing himself that he was a failure at everything he did and only ever made excuses to get by. He told her about how he was a shut-in back in his old world, how he had so much free time to do something with his life, but didn't. He just wasted his life away until he got to this new world, and now he's being useless here again. Wow. As much as I don't like self-deprecation, he's not exactly lying about all these things. So, yeah. He stopped yapping for a second and Rem began talking. She mentioned all the things she loved about Subaru, and also that she loved him too. Subaru told her she didn't know him at all, but Rem didn't let him even continue. She cried and told him that he had no idea how he had saved her. Back in the forest, when he brought her back to her senses, when he sacrificed himself over and over to make sure she was safe, and he still came back to her and gave her words of affirmation. He gave her life meaning again, and that was something she would never forget. She held Subaru close to her chest and comforted him. She called him her hero and told him that even though everyone wouldn't listen to him and he couldn't forgive himself, she would be there for him instead and love him. Subaru finally stood up and asked for her help. He said he loved Amelia and was going to do whatever it took to make sure he saved her. It's crazy, because he just rejected Rem and asked for her help in the same sentence. But she also rejected his proposal earlier, so I guess this makes them even. They're so cute together. I think I might start rooting for them. And with that, Subaru took Rem by the hand and gave his word to do things right as he starts his story from zero. Subaru called an audience with Krush and proposed an alliance with Amelia's camp in exchange for giving Krush the time and location of the white whale's next appearance. Hearing the name of the white whale made the butler very uneasy. Krush wondered why Subaru brought up the white whale so suddenly, but Subaru had already calculated that he needed to add something worth bargaining for if he hoped to get Krush on his side. Krush was still iffy about agreeing, but then Anastasia walked in and joined the meeting. Turns out, Subaru had made agreements with both Anastasia and Russell. Russell told Krush that he got a deal from Subaru and couldn't ignore it. Subaru had also let Anastasia in on it too, since she was hunting for the white whale as well. With all these factors laid out, Crush decided to trust Subaru and agreed to the alliance. Looks like Subaru has learned a lot from his mistakes in his previous lives. That night, all of Crush's soldiers started making preparations for the battle tomorrow. Subaru wasn't much help since he wasn't a soldier, so he just went to bed. The next day, everyone was hyping themselves up to go to battle. Subaru ran into Anastasia's head of the army. He was known as the Iron Fang. The guy was towering over Subaru so much it was just embarrassing. Crush came along, and Subaru noticed she was also going to fight. She asked him why he was going to fight as well, and he told her that he could lure the whale out and then give the others a chance to attack. Not the best attack strategy, but Subaru isn't exactly known for his genius intellect. So, Crush rallied the troops with a few words and they set out to slay the whale. Imagine the whale doesn't show up after all this preparation. Subaru would be tortured for the rest of his life. They'd make sure he never died. Yikes, that sounds horrifying. Anyway, they headed out, and it wasn't long before they made it to the flugel tree. When they made camp there, Subaru did some sightseeing and noticed that there were a bunch of names engraved in the tree. So he asked Rem to give him a chisel so he could do the same. Rem asked if Subaru was okay with using himself as bait for the whale, but he told her that this was the only way he could compensate for being useless. Rem totally disagreed and told Subaru that he's wonderful and that she was going to believe in him with all her heart. You know, I'm really leaning more toward Rem now. Maybe that idea to run away isn't so bad after all. Rem and Subaru went to meet the butler, Wilhelm. They told him that they had heard about his quest for revenge against the whale for taking his wife, but Wilhelm told them not to think too much of it. Rem asked if he loved his wife, and Wilhelm told them that he did, even now, as she was dead. So, Subaru promised to help him make sure he got his revenge. Some time had passed, and it was almost time for the whale to show up. Once Subaru's phone began ringing, they all looked around for the monster, and after a couple of seconds for dramatic effect, the whale finally showed up. Without hesitation, Subaru yelled out to the troops, and Rem attacked the whale. This made Crush all pumped up, and she led the troops to war. The troops marched forward to the white whale. While Subaru and Rem were advancing, they launched a device called the Night Banisher. It lived up to its name because it was so bright that it quite literally banished the night. The whale recovered from the blinding lights and saw Subaru riding away. It immediately went to attack him, but that was its mistake. Crush threw an attack at it, and the rest of the troops joined in. After a couple of bombardments, Wilhelm himself stood in front of the beast and began an assault of his own. He mounted the beast and pierced it from the top. Then he ran along its body while slashing it from every angle imaginable. This sounds like an ecchi manga all of a sudden, but moving on. Wilhelm finished his attack and came down from the beast. The rest of the troops began their attacks as well, from Anastasia's troops piercing it physically to the mages firing off powerful spells at it. It was a crazy assault, but alas, it wasn't enough to bring the whale to the ground. The Iron Fang immediately led another team to attack the whale, but Wilhelm was already back on top, cutting the whale open. Now that's a man with a serious grudge. He even cut out its eye and jumped down to stab it again. Overkill much? At this point, the whale had had enough. It let out such a horrendous scream, and the color of its eye changed. Before everyone knew it, the whale covered the area in a white fog. It took out troops before they could even see it coming. Crush cut through the fog and regrouped with the troops, but Subaru noticed something. There was a strong force blowing through the fog, and anyone who got hit by it was wiped from existence. That's insane. Subaru thought about what he could do and decided to become bait to lure the creature away. He used the trick of trying to talk about his time leap to lure the beast to him. A very reckless tactic, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The trick worked, and they managed to lure the whale to them, but the whale couldn't get its way, and the rest of the troops ended up catching it and doing some serious damage to it, even cutting off its tail. But Wilhelm noticed something was off. He acknowledged that the whale was sturdy, but he couldn't imagine his wife ever being killed by it. But he wasn't given time to think about all that. The whale threw him off its back and he landed on his ride. Then suddenly, the whale appeared from above and separated them with another attack. Wilhelm got separated from the rest of the troops, and before he knew it, he was being eaten whole by the whale. As if that wasn't bad enough, as Subaru and Rem kept riding, the Iron Fang pushed them out of the way of another attack by the whale. How is the whale able to attack so quickly after taking all that damage? Well, the answer came in the worst possible way. Subaru looked up and saw not one, but 3 white whales. Lord have mercy on these poor souls. Everyone was starting to lose hope after seeing Wilhelm get eaten, but Subaru refused to sink into despair. He rallied the troops and told them to keep attacking so they could rescue Wilhelm. Crush came up to Subaru and asked for his thoughts about the situation. He said, as long as Rem fights well, they have a chance to save Wilhelm. She asked about the whales and why no one knew there were 3 until now. They concluded that there was a trick to it and started racking their brains. In the meantime, everyone scrambled to fight it off. They even managed to get Wilhelm free. While Subaru was riding and thinking about the trick, Anastasia's second commander came up to him to tell him that the Iron Fang, Ricardo, was being healed as they spoke and would soon join in the fight. They delivered a message from Ricardo to Subaru, and as soon as he heard it, he had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. He went to Crush and told her that the whale basically did shadow clone jutsu and split itself into 3. With this information, it still didn't remove the threat of the whale. So Subaru came up with a plan of attack. Crush thought it was reckless and crazy, but so was everyone there. I mean, they're literally fighting a whale that can wipe you from existence and can fly. That just screams nightmare fuel. Crush agreed to Subaru's crazy plan, and they started by holding off the 2 clones. Crush blocked a clone from attacking the healers and, in the same breath, rallied her troops to keep fighting, especially since Subaru, the weakest of them there, was still pushing forward regardless of the situation. The troops got their second win and started fighting back. That was when Subaru executed his reckless plan. He used an ice bolt from Rem to get on top of the whale, and once he got the whale's attention, he fell down and used his trick to lure it toward him. As the whale was about to hit, Rem pulled Subaru away, and the troops blew up the base of the tree to fall on the whale. I can't believe they actually cut down the tree. That thing looked bigger than me when I see a Megan Thee Stallion performance, huge and strong as steel. As the tree fell and pinned the whale in place, Wilhelm approached it once more and started a final rush attack on it. With a final strike to its head and a declaration of love, the troops had defeated the white whale. As the healers tended to the wounded, Crush spoke to Subaru and thanked him for all that he did. She even called him the hero that slayed the white whale and told him that there were moments when his actions made her heart flutter a little. Well, color me surprised. Even on the battlefield, Subaru keeps rizzing these ladies up. Crush took the injured with her back to the capital and gave Subaru half of her troops to aid him in defeating the witch's cult. Ricardo stayed behind too. The army was looking very strong, and Subaru actually thought things could work out. But his mood changed immediately when he saw Julius coming with the reinforcements. Why is he here? Man, this is going to be one hell of a ride. After Subaru and Julius exchanged retorts, they managed to sit down together as Subaru briefed them for the next battle. He told them he had faced the witch's cult before, and they weren't to be taken lightly, like they didn't know that already. Wilhelm confirmed that while he had no concrete proof, he had heard rumors of the witch's cult making moves, and that gave Subaru's words credibility. So, after a few words of encouragement, Subaru and the troops headed for the Roswell mansion. On the way there, Julius came to Subaru's side and thanked him for slaying the white whale. Apparently, killing it had been a dire wish of the Imperial Knights for so long. So, he felt indebted to Subaru, and also apologized for belittling him in front of everyone. Subaru also did the right thing and apologized to Julius. He acknowledged that he was in the wrong and felt bad about what happened between them. But nevertheless, he still hated his guts. No surprise there. He caused Amelia to leave Subaru behind, so of course he hates his guts. When they got to the forest, Subaru made contact almost immediately with the witch's cult members, but he somehow gave them orders to do something else, and they obeyed. Then he walked further and met Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse was his usual creepy self and was happy to see Subaru. He then asked Subaru if he was the sin of pride, a question he had asked in the past as well. But when Betelgeuse checked his gospel, he found no record of Subaru and became wary of him. Subaru joked around and told him that he used his own gospel as a saucer, and it got messy. Betelgeuse didn't find this funny in the slightest and tried using his hands to catch Subaru, but he evaded it. Just then, 2 of the little troops came and blasted the lackeys into the ground. Betelgeuse was furious, and he turned to face Subaru, but Wilhelm came from behind and split him in 2. After Felix confirmed he was dead, the little troops found his gospel, but they didn't even want to touch it, and neither would I. It looked like it had the coronavirus all over it. Subaru took it, regardless, in the hopes of deciphering it and finding out more about the cult. Subaru and the gang headed back to base camp and regrouped. The other teams had carried out their missions smoothly as well, and victory was in sight. But suddenly, Subaru saw the unseen hands again, and even though he signaled for people to duck, they still grabbed onto a couple of people and literally squeezed them to death. It dragged Subaru into the forest, and there he saw another one of Betelgeuse's lackeys, or as he called them, his fingers. This one had just about the same kind of powers as Betelgeuse and was even just as creepy. Subaru was about to be crushed by the hands, but suddenly, a spirit appeared out of nowhere. It distracted the finger long enough for them to ambush and kill him. When they headed back to base camp, Subaru was having regrets for bringing them all into his mess, but Wilhelm told him not to despair and to keep fighting. As they headed to the village to evacuate the residents and eventually Amelia, Felix told Subaru to go and make up with Julius. He told Felix that he did, but he knew that Subaru still had a little resentment toward Julius. So, Subaru went forward and began to patch things up, but suddenly, everywhere went cold, and Subaru saw a girl with a blue flower in hand. Who is she? Subaru dismounted his beast and searched for clues as to what could be going on. Then, suddenly, a flower grew vines and confined him. He figured out that it was an illusion since no flower like that existed, and so the flower got burnt, and he was free. When everything cleared, he saw that Julius had broken free from his illusion too, but a good number of the troops were still under it. Julius cast a spell to help everyone get out of its control, and then suddenly, the girl in the hooded cloak abducted Subaru and tried to get away. But Wilhelm wasn't about to let that happen. The girl revealed herself as Ram. Why the hell was she there? Subaru asked the same question to her. She told Subaru that the reason she came was because she thought he had changed masters. The letter sent to Amelia was apparently a blank one, which is a declaration of war in simpler terms. Subaru assured her that it was a mistake and told her about the plan to evacuate the villagers. When Subaru got to the village, he tried to be friendly and told them that they had to evacuate because of the Maybeasts, but the villagers were too frightened to listen to him. I don't get it. He's telling them to leave the village because they're in danger, yet their response is to stay because they're scared? Make it make sense, please. Subaru was confused about what to do, but Felix gave him a pat on the back and told him not to look down, and that as long as what he was doing was right, he shouldn't waver. Subaru took those words and was finally able to convince the villagers, and with a few extra words from Ram as well, the villagers quickly evacuated. Subaru heard from one of the children, Petra, that Amelia had come to the village yesterday to try and bring the villagers to the mansion for protection, but they stuck to their superstitions about half-elves and refused to listen to her. Subaru realized he might need some leverage to convince Amelia as well, so he asked Julius for help. Subaru also asked Julius about the spell he cast earlier, and Julius told him that he was a knight who used spirit arts. A spirit knight. Nice nickname. He also told Subaru that he had a great affinity towards spirits. As they headed to the mansion, Felix asked Subaru if he had patched things with Julius, and he said he was going to think about it later. He then asked Felix to come along with him, but Felix had a plan in motion. One of the merchants walked in as Subaru and Felix were talking, and Felix stunned him. Apparently, he noticed that one of the fingers had put a spell on the merchant, but it was a bit too late. The merchant had set things up with his allies, and the carriage blew up. When Subaru came to, there was chaos and fighting. Felix went to heal the injured, and Subaru and Julius went to help Wilhelm, who had been struck down by a self-destructing finger. Just as one was gone, another one popped up. For Pete's sake, how many fingers does this guy have? Subaru brought out the gospel and lured the finger away with it. He managed to kill her by using the beast dogs, but when he got to town, there was one left. Just as Subaru was about to fight it, Amelia appeared and gave it the beatdown of a lifetime. But just when things looked like they were finally over, Subaru felt a strange sensation and ran away. Julius and Felix followed him to the forest, but they were too late. Beetlejuice had taken over Subaru's body. Subaru told them to kill him, but Julius couldn't bring himself to do it. It was only after Felix used his power to immobilize Subaru that he was able to land the final blow. Subaru reset at a different point this time. It was just before they headed to the Roswell mansion. Subaru, now equipped with much more information, decided to calm down and analyze the situation better. He told them about the possibility of the Sin Archbishop possessing other members to elongate his life, and Julius mentioned something about it too. He told them that the best way to deal with the situation was to first kill off all the fingers, and then deal with the Sin Archbishop directly. Back at the mansion, Amelia was still having nightmares about what happened at the Capitol with Subaru. Puck came to greet her earlier than usual because he was worried about her. Amelia asked him what she could do in this situation, and Puck told her that she should do what she wanted, and that no matter what, he'd be on her side. Now that right there is a real one. Amelia went downstairs later that day to receive a visitor. It was Wilhelm. He came to rectify the mistake about the letter and inform her about the impending danger to the villagers. Amelia was concerned, but Wilhelm assured her about every question she asked, and even the ones she didn't ask. And with that, she agreed to his terms and ordered the villagers to be evacuated. When Amelia went into the village, the only carriage left was the one with the kids. She said there must have been a mistake, but Subaru came along and eased her nerves. He asked the kids what they wanted to do, and they ran up to Amelia to tell her they wanted to ride with her too. Amelia was filled with joy, but before she could thank Subaru, who she didn't even know it was, he had gone to handle other business. He intercepted the spy of the witch's cult and cut off his communication with the others. After saying their goodbyes at the village, Subaru began his plan. First, he went to meet Beetlejuice at his hideout. He pretended to be a devout follower, but when Beetlejuice asked him to show his gospel, he showed him the media used for communicating with the other followers. Beetlejuice was confused, but Subaru's ground dragon ran him over. He got up and started acting in his usual creepy way, saying he would kill Subaru, but Subaru took off. Shaking him off was a big pain because of those hands of his, but the tiny troops came to Subaru's rescue and blasted the lackeys away. Subaru continued forward and led Beetlejuice to an open area where he once killed himself. I don't know if this is Subaru's idea of being poetic or just dumb. Either way, now that they were in the clear, Julius jumped down to face Beetlejuice. He used a spell to link his mind with Subaru's, and with that, he was able to see the unseen hands. Beetlejuice was losing his mind and launched a full-scale attack. But with the help of Subaru, Julius cut through every single one of the unseen hands. Now he prepares to end it all. Julius was starting to have some trouble keeping up. The hands were moving fast, but he managed to keep them at bay with a few injuries. When they finally had him cornered, Beetlejuice pulled a Captain Ginyu and body-swapped with Subaru. This time, however, Subaru was prepared. He used his trick, and it made the witch's hands come out to meet Beetlejuice, but she rejected him and sent him back to his body. Beetlejuice was distraught and frustrated. Even with Julius's sword in his chest, he tried a last-ditch effort to take them with him, but he just ended up crushing himself with boulders. Their victory was short-lived, however, because Felix contacted them and told Subaru that there was a cargo of firestones in the cart that Emilia and the kids were in. Those firestones could easily blow up a small village if used well. Subaru was frustrated. All his hard work and effort were about to waste, but then Otto spoke up. He offered to take Subaru in exchange for a trade. Subaru agreed quickly, but how sick of a person can you be to ask for something like that given the situation at hand? That's crazy to me, honestly. Otto and Subaru rode through the forest, and Otto said he knew a shortcut. The shortcut was crazy, to say the least, but while it was working, they had something on their trail. It was Beetlejuice. He had come to try and steal Subaru's body again. This guy just loves pain. Subaru fought him off with the spirit Julius gave him, but it wasn't enough. So, with the blood on his hand, he wrote in the gospel and ended Beetlejuice's rampage. He hurried forward to meet Emilia and saw Wilhelm fighting off the lackeys. Wilhelm told him to keep moving, and he would clear a path, W-Mans. Otto used his divine blessing to see where Emilia was. As soon as Subaru got there, he jumped into the carriage like a badass. He froze a little when he saw Emilia, but soon after, he ripped the floorboards and took out the firestones, then hopped back on his dragon. But before he left, he turned back to Emilia and told her he loved her, then went off. Okay, I see you, Subaru. It's not the best timing, but still, that's some top-tier mid-battle riz. Subaru ran toward the tree where the white whale's corpse was. He threw the bomb in it and headed as far as he could get before it exploded. Emilia ran out to meet him. Subaru woke up and found his head on Emilia's lap. He was surprised and confused about what to say, so he asked about the outcome of the battle. Emilia told him his dragon was safe with Felix, and everyone else was alright. Once he got that out of the way, he laid the riz on Emilia heavy. She started crying, asking why he always saved her, and he told her he loved her like crazy. For every sentence she used to make herself look bad, Subaru had twice as many to make her feel even better. He told her that if she listed 100 reasons to hate herself, he'd list 2,000 of why he loved her. Then he raised her head and wiped her tears away. Subaru might, low-key, be a light-skinned black guy. Emilia was overflowing with joy. She never thought she'd see the day someone professed love to her. She thanked him for saving her. But of course, that's all this story is about after all. What do you think will happen in the years to come? Let us know in the comment section, and make sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss out on any of our daily updates.